Hey guys, now move on to chapter 10 again with the book Hetty Feather. So things have been really exciting, right? Yeah, it's really exciting, and now I'm waiting. What will happen next with them? Because in the chapter 9, they are now in the Foundling Hospital. So what will happen next in chapter 10 when they are there? How will they be treated? And will Martha and Sal be there too? Lots and lots of questions coming up. So let's get started. Chapter 10. Always drinking water. Chapter 10. Gideon and I huddled in the cab. Mother had to pull us out. Please be so good as to wait, she said to the cabman, and approached the porter. If you please, sir, I'm bringing my 2 foster children back to the hospital, she said. He nodded and led us through the forbidden gates. Mother walked us along the long gravel path towards the doorway. We stared up at all the windows, but we couldn't see inside. There were no children peeping out at us, no children playing on the grass, no children anywhere. I strained my ear but could hear no chatter, no singing, no laughter. Mother rang the doorbell, and a tall woman in a dark dress and white apron opened the door. She had a white cap tied on her head and a long, grim face. She did not smile. Foundling 25621 and 25629, she said. Yes, ma'am, said Mother huskily. This is Gideon Smead and Hetty Feather. They are such dear children. Hetty is very bright indeed, and Gideon is very good and loving. Though he didn't speak just at present, he need a little extra quercetin. We treat all our foundlings in exactly the same manners. We have no favorites here, said the nurse. Come along, children. She held out her hands. We shrank backwards, clutching Mother. Say goodbye, the nurse said firmly. I was struck as dumb as Gideon. I couldn't believe it was actually happening. Not now, not so coldly and quickly. Mother gathered us together and kissed us. First me, then Gideon. Goodbye, my dear lambs. Try to be good and make me proud of you, she whispered. Hetty, look after your brother. She straightened up, took a step backwards, then she turned and ran down the path. Her hand opened her eyes. Mother, I called. Before she could look back, the nurse shut the door, trapping us inside the hospital. She clasped our hands determinedly, her own hands very icy cold and startling smooth. We were used to Mother's big, roughened hands. I'm nurse Beaufort. Come with me, she said, setting off at a quick march. We had to scurry fast to keep up with her. Gideon tripped once, and she jerked his hand impatiently, hurting him. He started crying then, big tears splashing down his cheeks. Don't cry so, Gideon. I'm here. I'll look after you, I said desperately. Shh, children. You're not allowed to talk until outdoor playtime, said the nurse, jerking my arm. Ah, so like they're only allowed to talk until playtime. This is indeed a very long chapter, so let's read until the end. We'll try. She pulls us up a long flight of stairs. There was another nurse standing there waiting. She was dressed in an identical dark frock and white starch apron, but she was smaller and very squat. Her dress strained at the seam, and her white cap seemed too small for her dark pink face. She had little eyes, prominent nostril, and several chins, looking for all the world like a pig in a bonnet. I gave a little snort, half laughing, half crying. Be quiet, child, she snapped. She seized me by the shoulder and propelled me to the right. My head jerked around. Tall, grim Nurse Beaufort was propelling Gideon the other way. No, you please, Nurse Gideon and me. We have to stay together. I said, struggling. I'm not a nurse. I'm Matron Peters. Now, come along, child. You cannot go with your brother. The small girl's wing is this way, said Pig-faced Peters. But you don't understand. He's only little. He can't manage without me. Nonsense. It is not nonsense, I shouted, stopping in my tracks. I have to look after Gideon. I promise, Mother. You must forget all about your foster mother now. You're a foundling child, and you will obey our rules. Our boys and girls live separately, and so will you. Then let me say goodbye to Gideon. Let me explain to him. Oh, please, stop this ridiculous fuss this instant. Hetty Feather, I won't stop. You are very cruel and wicked, and I hate you, I cried. I twisted my wrist out of her grasp and ran the other way after Gideon. Gideon, oh Gideon, I shouted. He was dragging his feet and drooping his boots, barely supporting him. He looked around, his eyes wide, his mouth a great O of terror. Then fat big trotter fingers seized me by the shoulder. She held me along, kicking and screaming, marching me to the right, away from my poor brother. How dare you behave so atrociously? You will be sorry, my girl, very sorry. She pushed me into a strange cold room with small bathtubs in orderly rows. Right, missy, take your clothes off instantly. You need a bath. I stared at her. But I've had a bath. I'm clean as clean look. Country clean. She scanned scornfully. You need a good scrubbing to get rid of all those nasty bugs and beasties. Get those clothes up while I fill the tub. I took up my coat and then sat down and started unlacing my boots. The matron crumpled my good coat into a little bowl and dropped into a basket. I gave her one boot and she threw it on top of my coat, careless of the muddy sole. She saw my shocked expressions. You won't need these anymore, she said, giving the basket a contemptuous shake. I blinked at her. Were the foundling children required to turn around naked? You will wear a uniform now, she said. Can I wear my best clothes on Sunday? Miss, you must call me matron. No, you wear your white tippets and apron on Sabbath, with your bands around your cuff, especially snowy white, and woe betide you if you get them dirty. Now hurry up. Child, get the rest of your clothes and step into this bath this instant. While she was topping up the bath, her back turned. I took Jam Precious sixpence out of the pinafore pocket. I stuck it inside my mouth for want a better place to hide it. The coin tasted unpleasantly metallic and felt as big as a dinner plate against my cheek, but it couldn't be helped. I was right to be so cautious. Once I had my pinafore and dress and drawers off, standing shivering in my chiffon stocking. The matron darted at me, snatched my rag baby, and threw her in the basket too. She's not my clothes, she's my baby, I protested, though it was heard to talk distinctly with the sixpence wedged in my cheek. It's nasty and dirty, and you're not allowed dollies here, but I can't sleep without her. Then you'll have to stay awake, said the matron. She pulled a shift over my head, plucked my stocking from my feet, lifted me up and plunged me into the bath. Then she took a cake of red carbolic soap and started scrubbing me viciously. I giggled and squirmed. Now let's continue. Added dignity, especially when she started washing my long hair, digging her fat fingers into my scalp and kneading it as if my head was a bowl of dough. I put my hands up, trying to protect my poor head. My fingers scratched her wrist, and she dug harder, furious. Keep still, you fiery little imp, she said, lathering me into a foam. She fetched another jug to rinse the suds away. This will quench that fire, she said, pouring icy cold water over me. I gasped in shock and would have screamed at her, but I had to keep my mouth stop her because of the 6 pence. Then she held me out onto the cold floor and grabbed me a thin towel around me. Well, dry yourself, child. Hurry up. When I was halfway dry, she sat me on a stool and picked a pair of scissors. I started trembling. What did she intend to do now? Cut up my fingernails? Cut up my fingers. She attacked my head with a hairbrush, smoothing out all the tangles so that my hair fell in a silky curtain past my shoulders. And then she started snipping, cutting my hair off, right up my ears. Oh, please, don't cut my hair, I begged, but she paid no heed. She snipped until my hair was shorter than a boy, and I was covered in damp red tendrils. She brushed them off with a towel, and then fetched another basket. The clothes inside this one needed folded. This will be your clothes basket, Hetty Feather. You're to keep your clothes in at night, and we'll tie you if you rumble them. She pulled out boots and stockings and bade me put them on. The stockings were stiff and bunched at the toes with repeated darning, and the boots were much too big for my small feet. I told Matron, but she didn't appear to care. Put your dress on now, the right way round, you silly child. I will tie your apron for you. I hesitated. Where were my new undergarments? I saw something white in my basket, but it was simply a strange old-fashioned cap. There was no shift, no drawers, nothing. I sailed over to my old clothes. Leave them alone. They're gonna be disposed of straight away. But matron, I have no drawers, I said, agonized. The matron's pink face went even pinker. You do not wear such garments here, she said. Now put that dress on at once. I stuck my poor shorn head through the stiff brown serge. It felt hard and scratchy against my scrub skin. She did my button at the back for me, tied on the apron, and then stuck the cap upon me. There, matron marched me over to a speckled mirror above the stone slab sink. Respectable at last. I stared at the forlorn figure in the mirror. Was that weird little creature in the cap really me? I shook my head violently, but the girl in the mirror shook her head back at me. Now you will join the other infant girls. Come with me. I hung back, fidgeting. Please, matron, I need the bribey, she blurted. She consulted the watch pinned to her chest. The infant relief break is not for another hour. You'll have to wait. But I need to go now. I'm nearly wetting myself. She sighed impatiently. And finally, she does let me go. Hurry up, child. I don't have all day to wait for you. Next, when I go to the next lesson to learn about darning, all the other girls laugh at me. Oh, look at her hair. Look at her hair. She looks stupid in her red hair. But I didn't mind. Instead, I think of Gideon and Mother. What is Gideon doing now? And how about Mother? Is she all sad at home? And anyway, when I was darning, behind me I saw a girl, and that looked just like Martha. Oh, Martha, is that you? Martha said, Oh, is that you, Hetty? And we all found each other again, but Martha didn't look like the old days anymore. Now she hung out with the other girls instead. And she played with them very happily, and she paid no attention to me. It was time to go to bed. I jumped out of bed and ran to the nearest girl. Well, I don't like you, I cried. I pulled her hair, her ear hard. She's screaming right to the next bed. I did that because not all the girl likes me anymore, and I don't like you. I pull another ear. They all said about shrieking. What is this terrible noise, matron? Pigface says. How did you behave so badly? And who is this child out of bed? She sees me, shining the lamp in my face. Hetty Feather, behave like a child of Saturn on your very first night here. Get back into bed this instant. If you put so much as a foot on the floor all night, you will be whipped severely. She smacked at me as I dodged past her and dived into my bed. Now, you are all to go to sleep this instant, Pigface commanded. After she waddled out of the room, there were several muttered remonstrances, but soon Berry Girl was breathing heavily. Some murmured as they dreamed, some snored. I was the only awake. I lay on my back, feeling so gratefully lonely in my narrow bed. I longed to snuggle up beside Jem or Gideon. My arms ached for my dear rag baby. I lay trembling hour after hour. I felt so small in this huge room of spiteful girls. I seemed to grow smaller and smaller as I lay there. I clutched myself in fear that I was actually shrieking. I clutched myself in fear. I might have to wear the dress, cap, and apron and tippet. I might have to obey all their dreadful rules. But inside my head, I still had to say, stay Hetty Feather. Oh, that was a good chapter. And what will happen in the next day if she wakes up? We'll find out. Bye.